Welcome back. And now we are actually going to read one of my favorite chapters in the book. I always ask myself, why is this one of my favorite chapters? This is called Silver's Embassy. As we know from our previous chapter, what's happening at the beginning is that Silver is coming with a flag of truce to talk to the folks that are at the stockade. Now, at the stockade, you've got Captain Smollett, Squire Trelawney, who's the guy who bought the ship, Dr. Livesey, and you've got Joyce, who is a servant of the squire, and Hunter, who also works for the squire. And you've got Abraham Gray, who didn't want to be with the pirates anymore and joined them. And you've got Jim Hawkins. That's all. And anybody else who's on the island is with Long John Silver, or like on his side. And Long John has come with a flag of truce to speak to them. Okay. And so let's see at the end, why is this one of my favorites? I still wonder about that. We'll see. Okay. Silver's Embassy. Okay, so embassy comes from the same word as ambassador. So an embassy is, in modern terms, it's a place where like the diplomatic officials of a country stay when they go to another country. So like in the United States, there's an embassy for a lot of other different countries. Like there's a Russian embassy, several of them actually, but like in Washington, D.C., there'll be like an embassy building, which would be like the headquarters of the people from that country in our country, and vice versa. There'd be a U.S. embassy in a lot of different countries. But what it really means, especially in this regard, is that an embassy is when you're on a diplomatic mission and you've come to make a deal, or you've come to terms with one another as two differing countries or nations or people. And so this is Silver's embassy. He's coming to make a deal. Okay, here we go. Sure enough, there were two men just outside the stockade, one of them waving with white cloth, the other, no less a person than Silver himself, standing placidly by. It was still quite early, and the coldest morning that I think I ever was abroad in, a chill that pierced into the marrow. The sky was bright and cloudless overhead, and the tops of the trees shone rosily in the sun. But where Silver stood with his lieutenant, all was still in shadow, and they waded knee-deep in a low white vapor that had crawled during the night out of the morass. The chill and the vapor taken together told a poor tale of the island. It was plainly a damp, feverish, unhealthy spot. "Keep indoors, men," said the captain. 10 to 1, this is a trick. Then he hailed the buccaneer. "Who goes? Stand or we fire." "Flag of truce," cried Silver. The captain was in the porch, keeping himself carefully out of the way of a treacherous shot, should any be intended. He turned and spoke to us. "Doctor's watch on the lookout. Dr. Livesey, take the north side, if you please. Jim, the east. Gray, west. The watch below. All hands to load muskets. Lively, men, and careful." And then he turned again to the mutineers. "And what do you want with your flag of truce?" he cried. This time it was the other man who replied. "Captain Silver, sir, to come on board and make terms," he shouted. Captain Silver. Now, notice it's cap'n, not captain, but that's what it means, captain. Okay, Captain Silver. "Don't know him." "Who's he?" cried the captain, and we could hear him adding to himself, "Captain, is it? My heart, and here's promotion." I don't know, a captain. Who's a captain now? Was he been promoted? Okay. Long John answered for himself. "Me, sir. These poor lads have chosen me captain after your desertion, sir," laying a particular emphasis upon the word desertion. "We're willing to submit if we can come to terms and no bones about it. All I ask is your word, Captain Smollett, to let me safe and sound out of this here stockade, and 1 minute to get out a shot before a gun is fired." "My man," said Captain Smollett, "I have not the slightest desire to talk to you. If you wish to talk to me, you can come, that's all. If there's any treachery, it'll be on your side, and the Lord help you." "That's enough, Captain," shouted Long John cheerily. "A word from you's enough. I know a gentleman, and you may lay to that." Okay, first of all, the captain wasn't nice. He was like, "Whatever, I don't have anything to say to you. If you want to talk to me, go ahead and talk. If there's anybody who's going to be doing anything evil or bad, it's you." And Long John's like, "Good enough, good deal, I'm coming." So we could see the man who carried the flag of truce attempting to hold Silver back. Nor was that wonderful, seeing how cavalier had been the captain's answer. But Silver laughed at him aloud and slapped him on the back as if the idea of alarm had been absurd. Then he advanced to the stockade, threw over his crutch, got a leg up, and with great vigor and skill succeeded in surmounting the fence and dropping safely to the other side. Remember, it's a 6-foot tall fence made up of like logs, like tree posts made out of small trees, right? And he, one-legged, gets boosted and climbs over the top. I will confess that I was far too much taken up with what was going on to be of the slightest use as a sentry. Indeed, I had already deserted my eastern loophole and crept up behind the captain, who had now seated himself on the threshold with his elbows on his knees, his head in his hands, and his eyes fixed on the water as it bubbled out of the old iron kettle in the sand. He was whistling "Come Lasses and Lats," which is just a little song that he's whistling. So he's just sitting there, head in hands, looking at the water in the spring as it's coming out, as Silver's coming up to him. Silver had terrible hard work getting up the knoll. What with the steepness of the incline, the thick tree stumps, and the soft sand, he and his crutch were as helpless as ships in stays, but he stuck to it like a man in silence, and at last arrived before the captain, whom he saluted in the handsomest style. He was tricked out in his best, an immense blue coat thick with brass buttons, hung as low as to his knees, and a fine laced hat was set on the back of his head. These are interesting details, because he never had that stuff that anybody'd seen before. So he put on his captain outfit after he was made captain, after the real captain deserted. Yeah, it's a mutiny. Obviously the pirates are going to take over, and he's the pirate captain, and he was already ready to dress like one. But it's interesting. Get the picture in your head, right? The captain's like, yeah, go ahead, come up. He doesn't actually say come up. He says, you can talk all you like. I don't have anything to say to you. And Silver climbs over the fence and then climbs up the hill, one-legged with a crutch in sand. It's a really hard thing for him to do, but he does it. He does it cheerfully. Okay. Here you are, my man, said the captain, raising his head. You had better sit down. You ain't gonna let me inside, Captain? Complained Long John. It's a main cold morning, to be sure, sir, to sit outside upon the sand. Why, Silver, said Captain, if you had pleased to be an honest man, you might have been sitting in your galley. It's your own doing. You were either my ship's cook, and then you were treated handsome, or Captain Silver, a common mutineer and pirate, and then you can go hang. So Silver's like, hey, aren't you going to invite me inside? And he's like, what, you want me to treat you well? I did treat you well when you were the cook. But now that you're a mutineer and a pirate, no. They don't have to treat you well. You can go hang, he says. Well, well, Captain, returned the sea cook, sitting down as he was bidden on the sand. You'll have to give me a hand up again, that's all. A sweet, pretty place, because, he's got one leg and a crutch, right? So he's like, well, if I sit down in the sand, you're going to have to, help me up in a minute. Sorry, my text went all sideways. I'm going to flip my phone around. Here we go. A sweet, pretty place you have of it here. Ah, there's Jim. The top of the morning to you, Jim. Doctor, here's my service. Why, there you all are together like a happy family, in a manner of speaking. If you have anything to say, my man, better say it, said the captain. Right you were, Captain Smollett, replied Silver. Duty is duty, to be sure. Well, now you look here. That was a good lay of yours last night. I don't deny it was a good lay. Some of you pretty handy with a handspike end, and I'll not deny neither, but what some of my people was shook. Maybe all was shook. Maybe I was shook myself. Maybe that's why I'm here for terms. But you mark me, Captain. It won't do twice, by thunder. We'll have to do sentry go and ease off a point or so on the rum. Maybe you think we're all a sheet in the wind's eye, but I'll tell you, I was sober. I was only dog tired, and if I'd awoke a second sooner, I'd have caught you at the act, I would. He wasn't dead when I got round to him, not he. Well, says Captain Smollett, as cool as can be, All that Silver said was a riddle to him, but you would never have guessed it from his tone. As for me, I began to have an inkling. Ben Gunn's last words came back to my mind. I began to suppose that he had paid the Buccaneers a visit while they all lay drunk together round their fire, and I reckoned up with glee that we had only 14 enemies to deal with. So remember, Ben Gunn said there may be witters in the morning. And here comes Silver, and he's like, "Oh, I almost caught you last night. That was a good one you pulled on us. When I got to him, he wasn't even dead yet. I almost caught you." Who? Somebody got killed last night amongst the pirates because they had all been drinking and they weren't setting up guard. And who probably did it? I think we know that it would have been Ben Gunn, because Ben Gunn said he might. Okay. "Well, here it is," said Silver. Wait. "Yes, well, here it is," said Silver. "We want that treasure and we'll have it. That's our point. You would just as soon save your lives, I reckon, and that's yours. You have a chart, haven't you?" And by chart, always they mean map. Okay. "That's as may be," replied the captain. "Oh, well, you have. I know that," returned Long John. "You needn't be so husky with a man. There ain't a particle of service in that, and you may lay to it. What I mean is, we want your chart. Now, I never meant you no harm myself." "That won't do with me, my man," interrupted the captain. "We know exactly what you meant to do, and we don't care for now, you see. You can't do it." And the captain looked at him calmly and proceeded to fill a pipe. "If Abe Gray," Silver broke out. "Avast there," cried Mr. Smalley. "Gray told me nothing, and I asked him nothing. And what's more, I would see you and him and this whole island blown clean out of the water into blazes first. So there's my mind for you, my man, on that." This little whiff of temper seemed to cool Silver down. He had been growing nettled before, but now he pulled himself together. "Like enough," said he. "I would set no limits to what gentlemen might consider shipshape or might not, as the case were. And seeing as how you were about to take a pipe, Captain, I'll make so free as to do likewise." And he filled a pipe and lighted it, and the two men sat silently smoking for quite a while, now looking each other in the face, now stopping their tobacco, now leaning forward to spit. It was as good as a play to see them. Okay, so the two men are smoking, which was a very common practice at the time. And they have their tobacco and pipes, and they're just sitting there kind of like waiting for the other one to, you know, trying to look relaxed, trying to look cool, I guess, and not getting any more conversation for a little bit. But Silver thinks that Gray, like, "Did Gray tell you about our plans? Because what we're going to do?" And the captain's like, "No, I didn't ask him. He didn't say anything. Doesn't matter. You're not getting the map, and there's not much you can do." Okay. "Now," resumed Silver, "here it is. You give us the chart to get the treasure by and drop shooting poor seamen and stoving off their heads in while asleep. You do that, and we'll offer you a choice. Either you come aboard along of us once the treasure shipped, and then I'll give you my affidavit upon my word of honor to clap you somewhere safe ashore. Or, if that ain't to your fancy, some of my hands being rough and having old scores on account of hazing, then you can stay here as you can. We'll divide stores with you, man for man, and I'll give you my affidavit as before to speak the first ship I sight and send him here to pick you up. Now, you'll own that's talking. Handsomer you couldn't look to get now you and I hope," raising his voice, "that all hands in this here blockhouse will overhaul my words, for what is spoke to one is spoke to all." Okay, so here's his deal for everybody. You give us the map, and then you've got two choices. We'll drop you off somewhere. The first safe port we come to, we'll drop you off. If you don't trust us because you think that we might have a grudge against you, or some of my men might have a grudge against you, then we'll leave you with some of your stuff and send the first, when we come across somebody, we'll send them to come get you. Okay, that's our deal for you. And he goes like, and I'm telling the captain, but I'm telling all of you, anybody in the blockhouse, the deal goes for anybody here. Captain Smollett rose from his seat and knocked out the ashes of his pipe in the palm of his left hand. "Is that all?" he asked. "Every last word, by thunder," answered John. "Refuse that, and you've seen the last of me but musket balls." Kind of love that line. It's like, you've seen the last of me, but my gunshot. Okay, if you don't like it. Okay. "Very good," said the captain. "Now you'll hear me." Here's the captain's deal. "If you'll come up one by one, unarmed. I'll engage to clap you all in irons and take you home to a fair trial in England. If you won't, my name is Alexander Smollett. I've flown my sovereign's colors, and I'll see you all to Davy Jones. You can't find the treasure. You can't sail the ship. There's not a man among you fit to sail the ship. You can't fight us. Gray there got away from 5 of you. Your ship's in irons, Master Silver. You're on a lee shore, and so you'll find. I stand here and tell you so, and they're the last good words you'll get from me. For in the name of heaven, I'll put a bullet in your back when next I meet you. Tramp, my lad, bundle out of this, please, hand over hand, and double quick. Okay, so his deal is, I got a deal for you. You and your men, you walk up here, and I'm going to handcuff you all. I'm going to put you in irons. I'll chain you all up, and I will take you back to England for a fair trial. And if you don't like that, I will see you all to Davy Jones. And if you know what Davy Jones's locker is from watching Pirates of the Caribbean, Davy Jones is like, like when you die, you go to Davy Jones's locker. So he's like, I'll see you all to the bottom of the sea. Okay. And he's like, my name is Alexander Smollett, and you can fight me, basically. And he tells him to get out of here. Okay. Silver's face was a picture. His eyes started in his head with wrath. He shook the fire out of his pipe. Give me a hand up, he cried. Because remember, one-legged guy sitting in the sand, right? Not I, returned the captain, who's still sitting there, right? Who'll give me a hand up? He roared. Not a man among us moved. Growling the foulest imprecations, he crawled along the sand till he got hold of the porch and could hoist himself again upon his crutch. Then he spat into the spring. So he spat into the water source, right? Patooey. There, he cried. That's what I think of ye. Before an hour's out, I'll stove in your old blockhouse like a rum puncheon. Laugh, by thunder, laugh. Before an hour's out, you'll laugh upon the other side. Let them that dial be the lucky ones. With a dreadful oath, he stumbled off, plowed down the sand, was helped across the stockade after 4 or 5 failures by the men with the flag of truce, and disappeared in an instant afterwards among the trees. I think that's the part I like. He's this jerk of pirate who commits mutiny against the captain and the good guys, basically. Comes up there and demands the map to the treasure, says they don't have a choice. And the captain's all like, oh yeah? No. And we'll see you all at the bottom of the ocean before this is over. And so there he is sitting in the sand. He's like, well, give me a hand up. And they're like, no. And he has to struggle his awkward way away to get out of the stockade. But what do you think is going to happen next? He came up to make a deal. No deal. So that means the next chapter is probably about what happens because no deal was made. All right? So keeping that in mind, write your notes. Make sure that you really, really carefully put down what Long John Silver and the captain did in this chapter. And then we'll go from there. The next chapter is full of action, and we're really gonna have to pay attention to the details to know what happens. So that's it for chapter 20. Come on back for chapter 21.